reached 10 Central, 11 Eastern here. I, however, am aware of how scheduling works, so I'm going to give people a few more minutes to join before we actually get into everything. So we have a hour-long presentation. During the presentation, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to be muted, but if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. Do we have a preference on that, Lisa? Does that one work better than the other, Greg?
So I prefer it in the Q&A just because it's one list, but inevitably they're going to be in both places. So we just have to keep an eye on both. But yeah, I prefer it to be in the Q&A, but we're going to have to just be a little flexible about it, I think.
Okay, excellent. So focus on the Q&A for questions. The structure of the presentation will be, there will be, a certain amount of presentation. We're going to have both a little bit of homework, but we're going to have a exercise while everything is going on. So we'll break out for an exercise, come back and discuss the exercise, and then save time for Q&A at the end of the whole presentation. Okay, seeing a few late connections here, so we'll probably start in another minute or two here just to make sure we make our time, if that's all right. Okay. Well, again, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. I'm Tim Nolan. I'll be the speaker today. So I'm here in my Zen garden, hopefully going to be able to talk to everybody about connecting more internally with their emotions. And I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation here. All right. Greg, Lisa, is that looking okay? We seeing the presentation there? No notes pages and stuff?
Yep.
Looks good.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending again. We'll be talking about emotional intelligence today. This is part of the series from the CSIA Emerging Leaders. We're going to be covering both tools and habits for leaders in the CSIA and elsewhere to help you work through emotional intelligence. But of course, for that kind of thing, we need to start with, why am I talking? I'm Timothy Nolan. I'm the Vice President of Engineering and Innovation at Data Science Automation. We've been a CSIA member for a very long time. I've gone through all the certification and auditing processes. I'm a bioengineer by training. So I'm hoping to show that we can go from the technical side to the emotional side here readily, and how I've gone through that. I was a Rising Star Award winner at CSIA. I've been trying to attend just about every CSIA conference since 2017. I hope I've run into a few of you there, and if so, great to see you again. Now, I am not a psychologist. I'm not an expert in, the human brain or anything like that. So to a certain degree, this presentation is a distillation of other bodies of work. Now, at Data Science Automation, I've had the advantage of being able to go to Vistage training. Vistage has been a CSIA partner in the past, and many of you have heard of it. And we have some great speakers there, including Bill Crawford and Mary Lore. So in a lot of the parts where I'm talking about understanding your own brain, understanding your own emotions, and kind of your internal A lot of Bill Crawford's work is going to be there. And then in all the parts where I'm talking about communication and relating to other people, quite a lot that goes to Mary J. Lohr. And there'll be links for this later as well in the presentation. So Mary also has the book of Managing Thought, which I've read and enjoyed. And in addition, we try to share and train amongst ourselves here in the steering committee. And DMC has been also very gracious in loaning some of their training material, which was also integrated into everything here. So this is the overview of what we'll cover today. So why are we caring about emotional intelligence to start out with? We'll be covering everything from self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, empathy and communication, inspiring collaboration, and we're going to have an exercise focusing on communication mostly when we get later into the presentation. So, emotional intelligence. There are a number of problems that are facing companies today, and I'm sure some of you have run across this. There's differences between generations who work for the same company. There's things like Zoom fatigue, where people are not feeling connected because they're, well, just like you and I on the other side of a computer screen rather than right next to each other. Sometimes even those two things combined can be, I have difficulty defining what's my company culture, how are we relating together? And the big topic that's been for the past couple of years is employee retention. So if I understand my employees better, I can lead more into employee retention. And so all of these can have some sort of emotional root or an emotional solution as we go through. So let's start with a dictionary definition here. So emotional intelligence, otherwise known as emotional quotient or EQ, as opposed to IQ. So I'll be talking a lot about the kind of technical side versus emotional side, the IQ versus EQ. A lot of the articles you might have seen over the past 10 years have that kind of, dichotomy between them, but I hope we can see that they really feed into each other here. But ultimately, it's the ability to understand, use your own emotions in positive ways. Now, the rest part is a little bit, more your specific thing. Are you going to relieve stress or communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict? Well, hopefully. But really, we want to focus on the first part of this. Understand, use, and manage your own emotions. We're going to be talking about how do I change the way I think? Will that evaluate what actions I take? And are there any new tools that I can bring to my workplace based off of those thoughts and those exercises? So let's talk about self-awareness, all right? All change begins with the self. Now, I've heard this phrase a lot. I've tried to find the original source and cite it, but it was attributed to everybody from Mark Twain to Abraham Lincoln, just like every quote is these days. But, you might have seen a graphic. If you're a jet-setting person like I am, you have to put your oxygen mask on before assisting others. This has picked up recently where I first have to understand my own emotions and first have to have my self-awareness before I can start coaching that information and those emotions in others, right? So is anybody going to go to this guy for advice, for example? If you're not self-regulated, then you are not going to be in the right position to address it with anybody else. Now, this I did find an attribution for. Problems cannot be solved at the same level of awareness that created them. Now, this is often misquoted. Often people are like, oh, I can't solve the problem at the same technical level that I created this problem, but it's a level of awareness. Now, when I'm emotional, when I get into things, they can affect my ability to react, all right? So what we'll often talk about is if I'm emotional, if I'm stressed, if I'm upset, if I'm confused, then I'm kind of in my lower brain. Now, this sounds like a philosophical thing, but really it's physiological. My lower brain is where all my emotions are, where my adrenaline comes from and everything like that. And we kind of end up in what's known as fight, flight, or freeze, all right? Now, that's a fancy way, but, we've gone through days and we've been stressed and we felt maybe panicked, or we felt worried, or we felt angry. So, think about a time in the past when you felt that way. I'm going to ask you a lot in this time to kind of cast your mind back and go through things you felt in the past. So I want you to think, when I was super angry, did I make really good decisions when I did that? I mean, can you think of a time when you were upset or frustrated and you're like, wow, I am so glad I was upset and frustrated because that led to some great decisions, right? So that is the kind of thing you need to understand. And you have to understand that it's built in. When we are stressed, when we are worried, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. It's normally done fight or flight, but we have to understand that sometimes it's no action. Now, fight or flight, oops, used to have a good purpose, right? All right. So we used to need to be like, well, either I'm escaping from a saber-toothed tiger or I need to go chase down my mammoth, right? Fit in your whoever kind of person you want to be on the left-hand side. This was just on the graphic that I could find. So it did have a purpose, but we need to understand how can we rise above that and get, more more into self-awareness. So the first thing we need to do is be aware of when you're entering your lower brain. When are you worried? When are you concerned? When is your heart rate going up? When are you breathing heavier? So the first homework that I have for you is, for the next week, just remark to yourself, oh, I was worried there for that moment, or I was angry there for that moment, or I was concerned or confused. All right. Stress is a signal. Stress is fine because it tells you that something needs to change when you're dealing with it. Now, if you don't change it, that can lead to suffering. Suffering is that change, and I'm living in that now. Means, first of all, I have to mark it. I have to recognize that it's there. Second, now once I remarked it, now I want to take a chance to breathe and relax. All right. Please don't take too much of my background here into saying that you need to become a Zen practitioner or a meditative or something like that. But if you've done similar things, yoga, Tai Chi, tapping, meditation, there's many different approaches to this. You may understand that even just deep breathing can reduce adrenaline and you can get out of the fight or flight idea. Now, believe me, I know there's all kinds of type A people who are probably on this call. And they are probably thinking, well, why would I relax? I need to be focused, I need to be organized, and so on. And we'll get into that, I promise. But you're seeing even more and more Fortune 500 people, these tech company heads, realizing that meditation and focusing and taking a moment before you make decisions can really help you recognize your emotions. Now, this has a physiological reason. It's not completely metaphysical. When I deep breathe, I have my vagus nerve down the center of my body. It brings new sensations back to my brain. It affects my sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. I did pretty good on that test, but we're not going to dive into that right now, I promise. But it can really help you from a meditative and physiological perspective. Now, I have heard a lot of people tell me that, I'm not good at meditation. All right. The moment I meditate, my mind just flies everywhere else. It doesn't work for me. Well, you need to understand that meditation, or simple, again, any of these approaches, the number of approaches, I'm using meditation as a shorthand right now, is a practice. It's like saying, well, I tried lifting weights and I couldn't lift them, or I tried running and I couldn't go 26 miles. Well, you're not going to the first time. The art of meditation and everything is like, how do I bring my thoughts back? So they might wander, then I bring them back. And eventually I'm going to get better and better at that as I proceed. Find your own practice, find your own guru if you want for meditation in order to approach that if you'd like. But it can help you escape from the lower brain up to what we call the upper brain. Now, why do I want to do that? So once I've escaped from the lower brain, I can experience life from the top of mind. All right. So top of mind, this is where I get to be creative. This is where I get to connect with people. This is where I get to be most efficient because I'm not being hampered by any of those fight or flight or any of my adrenaline like we might have been. Life from the top of the mind, that's Bill Crawford's term. That's how he really goes for it. I believe that's even what his book is called. Now, just like you might think of any of your processes or anything you might do in your company, in order for me to affect something, I need to measure it first. So once I've escaped and I'm in the top of my mind, I'm in a more clear place to think. I should think, okay, so was this thought, this emotion, this action chosen on purpose? Did I get angry on purpose, or did it be inflicted on me? How was that working for me? Is this the way I want to be defined? I'm not telling you the way to think. I'm not telling you what emotions are good or bad, or that even emotions are bad in any way. They're valid, but you need to evaluate them. How are they working? Is this the way I want to be defined? And, we're talking about how you're relating to other people as well. What I teach acting in this way to my child, children, to somebody I love, is this how I would want the people I love to be treated by somebody else? So that kind of focus can get you back in the mind of, did I want to be acting like that? Do I want to act that way in the future? So these questions will help you learn more from yourself. So this is Bill Crawford's idea here. This kind of summarizes what we've been talking about. You can see on the bottom, we have reactions, right? These are not actions. If I'm just going through life in chance, so it says a life of choice is a conscious action, a life of chance is an unconscious reaction. Deadlines, stress, workload, disagreements, they make me angry, they make me frustrated, they make me, make my adrenaline come up. I don't choose to be angry, I don't choose to be frustrated. Those are things inflicted upon me from the outside. So I need to practice escaping from what was inflicted on me so that I can get up to that higher brain that we see here. So I can be clear, so I can be compassionate, so I can solve problems, so I can influence people much better. So, for those of you out there who are parents, this might sound like parenting advice, right? Take a deep breath, step away from it before you act. There's a lot of overlap here. I mean, that's interpersonal skills. That's leadership. I'm hoping to my boys that I'm a leader and that I'm compassionate and creative and that I'm not an angry and stressed father. Replace father or mother with leader or manager. You see a lot of overlap here. Now, I'm not telling you you have to be perfect all day long. I'm not telling you have to jump from one thing to a complete perfection and everything. And in fact, aiming for that will probably be counterproductive. Most of the time, a good goal is to break the day up and say, okay, I've had breakfast, I've had my croissant or whatever. Here's my first period of the day from first 4 hours. And let's see how I do. And then maybe I reevaluate and say, okay, well, I'm going to reset now. So don't let, maybe you get angry. Maybe you have a missed invoice. Maybe you have a bad customer review at 10:30 in the morning. Don't let that affect the rest of your day. Say, okay, at lunch, I'm resetting. I'm putting the morning away. I am now going to move into the afternoon. So build resets into your day, that I have a morning, then I have an afternoon, then I even have an evening for those kind of things. So it's not that, oh, well, I blew it. I got angry at 9. Might as well just let the rest of the day go. Chunk it up. Look for small targets, 2 hours, 4 hours, however makes sense to you. Now, tied into that is there's tends to be smaller chunks that you have in your day. All right. So as I go through my day, I have a bunch of activities. I doubt any of us are in the position where we're like, oh, I have 4 hours of interrupted time and 4 hours of interrupted time or 8 hours of interrupted time, right? We're switching from activities all the time. The important thing is that I don't want anything that has come out of activity 1 to bleed into activity 2. I want to make sure there's a clean transition between those two. So, in the upper example, so say activity 1 is, okay, this is purely theoretical. I know none of you would have have an angry customer or anything like that. But say you have an angry customer and you come out of a meeting with an angry customer and go immediately into trying to mentor a young engineer, technician, salesperson that's in your organization. So hopefully with my color coding here, you've seen that I don't want my emotions from activity 1 to bleed into activity 2. So it might not just be, hey, when I recognize the emotions in myself that I want to take a pause and I want to breathe and so on. It might be as I'm transitioning from activity 1 to activity 2 that I would say, okay, I'm putting that down. It can stay in that box. I'm moving on to the next box and I can take care of things there. So what are some of those transitions look like? It can be, like I said, from a customer to a coworker, or from a coworker to a customer. Maybe it was a bad interaction with a coworker that wanted to bleed into a customer. But let's think about our companies more as a group. We're trying to talk about company culture. We're trying to talk about retention. We're trying about mentoring our employees. So sometimes those transitions have to be from work to home, right? So we all have our little, things on our belt here, right here, that we can get caught at any time. But we have to understand that we don't want work things to affect home, and we don't want home things to affect work. A very interesting study recently is that people who either bicycle or ride a motorcycle from work to home or home to work have a much better emotional relationship with their family once they get home. Now, that's because riding a motorcycle or riding a bicycle, you have to concentrate on what you're doing. You can't just put on your podcast and zone out, drive your car, put. So in that case, can everybody mute, please? So, in that case, you're able to make the transition because you're no longer able to think about work. Or even if you are driving a car, I'm not saying everyone needs to switch to a motorcycle, although the CSIA motorcycle group would be pretty cool. Even something like maybe listen to your sales and project management podcasts on the way to work, and be like me and listen to your Star Trek ones on the way to home, so that you're making that transition between those two. Now, this has become even harder for a lot of people who are doing remote work, right? So if my remote work commute is 20 seconds as I go from the kitchen to my office, and then from my office back, am I making that a clean transition? Now, we want everybody to be working remotely, want them to be efficient and so on. But in order to do that, quite often defining those transitions can really help. Some techniques that I've heard people doing is, people, they will go out, they will get dressed for work, leave their house, go get coffee at whatever your local coffee place is, come back and be like, okay, now I'm at work. And then at the end of the day, do the same thing, go out, and you might not want coffee again, but do something else, come home and change as if you're coming back home from work. That will help you, again, compartmentalize, keep your emotions in the right spot, and will help with things like fatigue and so on. Like we said, when you're looking for connections and so on, well, the transitions can really help with that. Now, this has been self-regulation. This is understanding our own emotions, right? The first third of this presentation. And it's a tricky place to be. And because quite often, you also have to recognize that we're existing in a larger social awareness place. We have to understand other people's emotions. What are the dynamics in play at my company, in the cultures of people that I'm dealing with, maybe around the whole world. So let us say, okay, I can hear you all being like, this is fine, Tim, but I'm perfectly in control of my emotions. All right. I'm so-honored and everything. It's those other guys, it's those other people that are giving me the problems. Well, that's maybe the start of things here. It's like we need to understand that we're going to begin all of our relationships with other people. We need to start it in a world of empathy. We need to understand that how can we understand and influence other people? Now, we are leaders, we are managers, and so on. So quite often, we're in a position where we want something to happen. And when all the relationships are good, people listen to us and so on, things will go well. But if somebody else is in that same stage that we were just talking about, if I see somebody else in a stressed and a confused and an angry and a rich adrenaline state, they're not going to listen to anything I have to say. All right. You have to get past the, well, you're angry, so I'm going to get angry, and we're going to butt heads and everything like that. the "you stupid idiot" stage is what we call this, right? So it's like, well, why are you angry? Well, why are you criticizing me? Well, it's anybody who is not in a mental state to listen to you is going to hear any sort of conflict as criticism of them. At which point they're going to get annoyed that you're criticizing them and they're going to come back. And we understand that we're communicating. We might even be perfectly polite in our email or in our discussions, but that feedback is going to leak into our language. They're going to see, each other, the two people reacting in that case, they're going to see each other as conflicted, as annoyed, and so on. So what you need is what Neil Walsh said here. I need the ability to see more in others than they're showing me. So I understand, okay, these people are upset. I can see that they're dealing with this. So how do I get more out of this? How do I even show them that I'm willing to see more than what they show me? And this kind of gets back to, heck, we even cover this when we're talking about sales, is seek first to understand. So this is getting into Mary's work quite often in the book that I referenced at the beginning, is I need to get away from you need to do this, or this is what you need to change. Right? They're not looking for advice. They're not looking for things, and they might not even be in a place where they're able to receive advice. Right? So change your language to things like, help me understand what's important here. So in that phrase, I'm telling them, I recognize your opinion. You understand what's important here, and you can help me. Help me is a great phrase. Help me really gets to the point of, we need to work together here. And what do you want me to know about this? I do not understand everything that the other person has been through, and I cannot. So I need to know, what do they want me to know? And you need to keep curious in your mind. Curiosity is going to help you get through a lot of this. So you might not have to ask this, but even just keeping it in your mind, what else could I know about this situation? Is there a history of relationship here that I don't understand? Is there some other thing going on that I might not be aware to? And then finally, we do have to get things done, right? We need to get what we need out of something. But I can't start with that. Well, I need this, you need to do this. You can phrase it in a different way. It's important to me that this happens. How can it work if we do this? What if we do this? Would that work? Now, that last one is probably edging up more into giving advice, but you're still keeping the collaborative, the back and forth of it necessary. All right, so a number of you probably went to this CSIA conference, so this might be a repeat for some of you, but I feel like this video is important to watch. So I don't know if you've seen this before. It's called "It's Not About the Name." So it should be just quick 2 minutes here.
It's just, there's all this pressure, And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Okay, so we understand that that's an exaggeration of everything and so on. But I bet everybody was like, chose a side in that argument, right? Everybody was like, oh, I have this solution. Why won't they just take? Because this is a good place to be like, you can be right. You can have the perfect solution, but people might not be in the place to receive it from you. Okay. And it's a good point for empathy. It's like, well, what do you want me to understand about this? I have my first impressions that there's a nail in the head, but what do you want? Oh, you want me to understand how difficult it is for you and how that's affecting everything. So try not to leap straight into the solution. I know it's difficult. I'm an engineer, I'm a problem solver. Believe me, I've probably had problems with this in the past couple of days even, but it's a good way to think about things. Oops, nope. So to this point, we can revisit the golden rule. And probably everybody's heard this: treat others how you wish to be treated. No. Okay, well, that was maybe maybe I'm a little too harsh on that, but I would invite you to consider treat others how they wish to be treated. Right? This is where understanding other people that you work with, other businesses, other generations that you might work with is, we get caught up in the, oh, this worked for me. This is how I was mentored. This is how I related to my boss. So I'll continue on with that. But you need to think about or even ask about, well, how do they want to be treated? Now, I'm not saying you have to be a pushover. We're all leaders here. We're all managers. We have to make our decisions on what's best for the company, but you need to make that decision from a place of understanding so that it can be better received, right? And also just show people that they're appreciated. Thankfulness and appreciation can really help with relating to people. So how do I now take this? So we've talked about my internal, emotional state. How do I react with other people? But how do I enhance communication in general, out in my company? So number one, lead from the top. Model the kind of communication you want to see in the company. If you're in a meeting or you're running a conference or something like that, try to guide meeting attendees with the same techniques or prompt them. Then lead from within. If you see two people having a conflict with a coworker, invite them to consider, well, what don't you know about what they don't know about? Or, dealing with a vendor or a customer and say, well, why might this be happening? Why might they have suddenly changed? What don't we know? All right. If you focus on what don't we know, you can get pretty far along of understanding what might be going on. All right, so this takes us to our breakout session. Now, this is a kind of two-part session here. I want you to take out a sheet of paper, open up your Word app or something like that, and go through this exercise. So first of all, list the worst communicators you know. You can put down nicknames or somebody if they're sitting next to you, whatever happens, but what are the worst communicators you know? And then right next to that, say, well, this means that instead I value this in communication. All right. Then make a space and go say, who are the best communicators I know? And what do they do? And therefore say, this means I value these following things. This is going to have several portions to it. Like we said, you're going to go through this exercise. So I was going to say, take 5 minutes to do this, then we'll break out into groups. Now, why are we doing this exercise? We're doing this exercise, first of all, to understand yourself. Say, what do I value from communication? What do I not like in communication? And then we're going to do breakout session, and I want you to tell other people. Because this is a skill that you need to develop as well. So tell other people what you value in communication, and we can practice here, with just some fellow CSIA members, so that in the future, when you need to tell it to a coworker or a mentee or a customer, you'll have the ability to say, well, I prefer if we communicate this way. These are the things that I value. All right, so start making those lists. And I think we decided with the amount of attendees here that we're probably going to do more groups of 4 rather than groups of 3 that I have in the slide. I'm going to leave the slide up front, and I believe Greg should be able to break us out.
Tim, do you want me to
and,
go ahead and do that now, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, I would say we're going to take a couple of minutes here, so maybe wait 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll do the breakout sessions. And then we'll have the breakout session take probably 10 minutes, I think, just so that everybody has a chance to, all 4 people have a chance to go through their list. All right, Greg, I say let's go ahead and do the breakout groups if that's all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
They're just going to automatically put you in a room here. They might have to click a button. So I'm opening all rooms. So go ahead and push a join button if it's presented to you.
All right, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay. Join.
All right, everybody on the
All right.
call should hopefully get a notification to join a room. If you haven't already, please do so.
And I am not joining mine because it'll stop my screen sharing if I do that. So we'll talk together once we're back.
Okay, I'm gonna move some people here. So move. 8. So if you're still on the call in this group, everybody should be in a breakout room now. You may have to push a button to join. Let's see, Ernesto.
Spot in room 4 there if we want to do that. Or...
Okay. Ernesto, I just invited you to join a room, so you should see a button, hopefully, that you can join. Tim, are you in the room with Jack or no?
I am not, because like
Okay.
it said I
I'm
would
gonna
stop
move
sharing,
back.
so. Well,
Oh, is there another Tim Nolan?
are there two?
Tim, sorry, I thought you were the other Tim. I didn't assign, didn't get you in a room sufficiently.
Oh, okay.
Is that what's going on? Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no. Like, Chris, you're listed as Tim Nolan for some reason on
I
Zoom.
joined through the link you shared, and so I guess.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
that's Chris. Yeah. So,
This is Chris. Okay, sorry. Let me get you in a room.
okay.
Yeah, I got put in 2 different rooms so far.
I'm sorry.
We thought
Which do you recall which one you were in to start?
Room 4 was the first one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Do
one's
you care
empty
which one to
now.
go? Here, I'll put you back in. Well, no one is in room 4 at the moment, so
It's all right. Chris and I work together. We can do the exercise independently. So,
okay. I'll throw you in a room, Chris. Sorry about that.
How much longer is the exercise going to go on?
4 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that ended up being me, Chris. So let's just avoid it. I think. Thanks. So, sorry, Greg. I screwed things up when Chris is remote.
It's
Everybody
like,
else
no
is-
way there's another Tim Nolan here.
Yeah, no,
I know another Tim Nolan.
Yeah.
Who also lives in Pittsburgh. But yeah, I couldn't figure out. Sometimes there's a way to change your name on these things, but I couldn't find that in this meeting.
Chris, what's your last name?
Mullen, Mullin.
There we go. Okay.
Ah,
I got you. So it looks like there's a fair amount of folks who have not joined a breakout.
Okay.
Room.
there's only
Or-
3 minutes left. We'll let it run its course and then
Sure.
bring everybody back, I think. Does that sound good to you, Greg?
Yep. So 3 minutes.
Yeah, I've got 3 minutes here. So
I'm just going to broadcast to everybody 3 minutes remaining.
okay, great. All right, I think that should be it. If we want to
Okay,
bring
I'll
everybody,
go ahead and close all the rooms, and so everybody should be back in then a minute. They'll automatically close in
yeah, give
55
the countdown
seconds.
timer. Okay. Hope I didn't lose a lot of people by sending them to the breakout groups. They still coming back?
They're coming back.
Okay.
They'll close in 3 seconds, and then they'll automatically be ported back here. So,
Excellent. Thank you so much, Greg. I greatly appreciate this. I wouldn't know how to do all this.
all right, we're good.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope found that valuable. Some things in this exercise, when I've done it in the past, have come out that, for example, on the worst communicator side, people have said, somebody who doesn't ask questions, is something I don't like, which means that you value equal exchange. Or if somebody's vague in communication, which means you value that they've put in effort to the communication. Or with best listeners, people like when somebody's interactive, that means that they care. Or when somebody's professional, that means they've taken the time to communicate and prepare for whatever you might be doing. Or even that they're inspiring, which means that they have a connection with you and they understand what's going on. So keep those in mind as you proceed in your communication in your professional realm. We had talked about as well company culture and that there's thankfulness and appreciation. It can be a process, really. You want to make sure that people understand when they're meeting their cultural values or when you appreciate what they've done. If I do it once a year, people aren't going to remember it. You want to be in the situation where you can say, hey, I want to catch somebody doing things right. I want to catch them out. I want a process where I can thank them or appreciate them. So working into daily conversations or even at the end of a meeting, say, hey, I was really thankful that you brought those estimates for the coming year together. Or I'm really thankful that you remembered our contact at that customer. That saved us a lot of time. Now, it can be hard to do. So, either make it a ritual, like we said, at the end of every meeting, do it. That can be a little formulaic, or just, put a Post-it note on your computer or have some sort of trinket. Like I have Happy Hippo here. So Happy Hippo sits next to my computer, and every time I look at him, I can remember, oh, okay, well, have I thanked somebody? Have I appreciated somebody? Now he's multi-use, when I'm stressed out, he's very good for when I'm stressed out as well. But, you can tie it to something like that. Some people even make it their screensaver or their background on their computer. Have I thanked somebody? Have I appreciated somebody today? It's that kind of connection and so on that can really bring people together and kind of enforce this emotional connection that you might have. Okay, well, that brings me to the end of everything. So if there's any Q&A, I'm happy to address that. But these are some other places you can find some more information. For anybody who wants to be on the Emerging Leaders email list, you can either contact Lisa Richter directly, that's here, or you can go to the link on the page here, search for the Emerging Leaders group, and there you can sign up either for the Emerging Leaders email or for the overall CSIA email list so that you don't miss any other events. If you go to controlsys.org, there's also events listed there. And then the two references that I had in place here, so www.billcrawfordphd.com or managingthought.com, or where I got a lot of this information from. So bringing that to the last 5 minutes or so that we have here, is there anything in the Q&A or anything that I could revisit or go into more detail on? I'm pretty sure this was being recorded, and I'm pretty sure this is recorded later, and I think they're going to ask me for my slides as well, which should give you the links and so on. So as far as the recording be available later, I will double check with Lisa about that.
Hey, Tim, have you ever seen anybody go from progress very well, like maybe not have high EQ and then see good development from them? If so, what did it take for them to really make good progress?
It certainly took feedback. So I have seen it happen, and you quite often need to bring that up. It's like, because you often hire people to be problem solvers, and if they're being problem solvers and they're overriding what other people might be feeling, then you need to bring that up as a separate item. In addition, if you go through the audit for CSIA, they're going to ask you, what are your internal trainings? Are you doing soft skill training in addition to your technical training? I have to learn about these kind of things, about speaking, about communicating, the same way that I need to learn about Excel or PLC programming or control systems. So I would say making sure that your company is dedicated to having more of these soft skill training would be the way to go. Okay. Also checking the chat. Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of everything. I look forward to seeing other people at future webinars and future conferences. And I hope everybody has a great day. So thank you
Thanks,
very
Tim.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.